In the year 612, Emperor Yang of Su sent 300,000 troops to capture the capital of the Guguro Empire. General Mundiok, along with his 30,000 troops, was responsible for defending the capital. So, how do you defend against 300,000 with 30,000? Mundiok knew if he put his army against the Sioux army that they would lose. However, instead of accepting that future, they made the decision to shape the future so they could utilize their competitive advantage. Mundiok developed a strategy to launch small attacks against the Sioux that would guide their path to the Salsu River. It was rainy season, and the river was dammed, so it looked more like a valley. Waiting until the 300,000 troop Sioux army was deep into the valley, General Mundiok opened the dam and ambushed the Sioux from both sides of the now raging river. The Sioux retreated, and General Mundiok saved the Guguro Empire. How did General Mundiok think about the future? How do you think about the future? My name is JJ Schlungen, and I work for UNFI. Joining me is Kathleen Krantz from Lazy Acres, Charles Allen from Ray's Coca-Cola Bottling, Paul Perez from Cacique, and Austin Johnson from Albertsons. Collectively, we are Team Visionary. We are all extremely thankful to the WAFC, the USC Marshall School of Business, and our companies for investing in our personal and professional development over the past 4 months, in which one of our takeaways is this Capstone project that we have the opportunity to present to you today.
So how do you think about the future? The purpose of our presentation is to make you think about your consumer of the future and how you will utilize your technology and competitive advantage to capture that future consumer. To help you think about your future consumer, we will be engaging you in a strategic process called scenario road mapping, which will give you different pictures of how consumers will be interacting with the food industry in 2030. We will start by explaining how demographics and the power of AI are changing the consumer of the future. Next, we will explain the scenario road mapping process. And finally, walk you through 4 scenarios based off of the drivers we identified. But first, Charles will explain how AI and changing demographics in 2030 will impact our future consumers.
The 2030s will be a transformative decade for the U.S. population. They will grow at a slower pace, age considerably, and become more racially and ethnically diverse. By 2030, Generation Z, the most diverse generation in history, will be today's millennials, and millennials will control the disposable income. Generation Z and the Alpha generation are growing up with technology platforms and AI that previous generations never had the opportunity to embrace. With that being said, they're going to expect customization through these new social and transactional platforms as they shop beyond what is imaginable today. During the 2020 Super Bowl, Google debuted a commercial that showed a man relive all of his precious moments with Loretta. This commercial touched my heart to the point in which I played it over and over for anyone who might have missed it. That Tuesday, I received my very own personal Loretta email. It was an email from Google that displayed every city, airport, restaurant, and hotel I've stayed in for the past 5 years. My question for you is, how are you utilizing the data that is being provided to you? AI and the influence in generations will represent a powerful piece in each of the 4 scenarios we're going to paint for you today. I'd like to ask you again, how do you think about the future?
The strategic process of scenario road mapping is crucial to staying ahead in 2030 and helping move the industry in a way that you can compete effectively in. Scenario road mapping starts with identifying critical driving forces. Next, building out 4 plausible scenarios where those key drivers intersect. And finally, knowing what signposts will lead the consumer to that scenario. This building of scenarios is the best way to see how you can guide your business in the long-term future. You need to be aware of what could happen so you can effectively compete in what will happen. The 2 drivers that we found to be most important in the food industry over the next 10 years are delivery, how consumers will be getting their food and products in 2030, and shopping, where will consumers be shopping. Along these 2 drivers, we have identified the polar extremes. For delivery, products are either partially delivered still in 2030 or 100% delivered as the last mile is solved. For shopping, food trends are experiences that are happening socially in physical formats on one end, or on the other end, it's purely a transactional experience fueled through the exponential growth of data and technology through virtual platforms. To start off our scenarios, we will first be taking you through what we call the modern outpost that exists on the upper left-hand side of our diagram, where delivery is only partially used and physical stores are a social experience. Next, we will take you through what we call the ecosystem scenario, where delivery is also partially used, but consumers are interacting with the industry in a transactional format. The next scenario is, I want what I want when I want it, where the last mile is solved and consumers are shopping through the same transactional format. Finally, our showroom scenario is where the last mile is solved and consumers are engaged in a very social way with food. Follow the roadmap along the bottom of the slide as Paul starts us off with Modern Outpost.
Thanks, Kathleen. Physical marketplaces are the only retail format where all 5 senses are used. This gives us optimism for the role that brick and mortar grocery stores are going to play in 2030. But stores are going to have to look fundamentally different. In this extreme scenario, all physical grocery stores will become modern outposts that are driven by a highly experiential shopping environment and social shopping experience. Retailers will succeed by shifting their operations toward a customer-centric model and tailoring their store footprints, formats, and assortment based on the unique profiles of the local neighborhoods that they're positioned in. When a consumer makes the decision to take a trip to a modern outpost, they are looking for an immersive experience. Just consider the success of Epcot at Disney World, where parkgoers can experience a piece of other cultures from around the world through food and beverage. Disney has been able to increase park attendance and attract millennials without children through its world-renowned food and wine festivals. The modern outpost is not very far off from the food industry today when you consider the rise in full-service restaurants and grocery stores and what are now coined grocerants, as well as the large number of food halls that have sprung up around the country within the last few years. The evolution and adaptation of this scenario creates a true food emporium, bringing together retail, food and beverage counters, bakeries, restaurants, and entertainment. The modern outpost will be the future destination for social gatherings and foodie havens that are frequented multiple times per week. Today, food halls are humming destinations where shoppers have access to packaged goods, restaurants, specialty food manufacturers, microbreweries, and locally sourced produce. There are over 100 food halls across our nation open in historical buildings and hip shipping container parks, with more planned to open nearly every month in high-density areas, each taking a shopping trip away from traditional grocers. These food halls have inspired a new wave of entrants into the food industry, creating a hybrid space for retail and casual dining experiences. Consider the rapid growth of Eataly, the best example today of modern outposts that grocery stores will resemble in this future. Eataly's U.S. operation grew from $3 to $30 million in sales over the span of just 1 year, and Eataly has a total of 6 locations today, with 2 more planning to open in 2020. We will undoubtedly see new competitors in the modern outpost space over the next decade. Traditional grocers will have to adapt into culturally immersive modern outposts to remain relevant in the physical world. If experiential shopping is your competitive advantage, consider the modern outpost approach. I will now hand it over to Austin to discuss our ecosystem scenario.
In the ecosystem scenario, our consumer will be shopping by seamless interaction with technology, and our AI-enhanced personal assistant will know you better than anyone. Traditional in-store shopping will disappear almost entirely, replaced with automated fulfillment centers. We will see continued migration into expansive living and retail ecosystems as we turn our focus to pursuing our hobbies, health, and passions. Our consumer wants to be in control and to have personalized choices at their fingertips. There are over 30 billion connected devices today, and in 2030, they will integrate seamlessly into all aspects of our life. The definition of convenience will evolve as our home will be the retail store of the future. We request to shop for bell peppers, and our personal assistant instantly pulls up on our touchscreen TV shelves of colorful, fresh, organic produce from our favorite retailer. You, as the retailer, Know we only eat organic and have personalized for us a virtual display of fresh organic produce. Bell peppers that arrived today from a local farmer are front and center. Also, based on previous shopping habits, you fill the screen with additional variety to entice us to do a little impulse shopping. We shop the section just like we would at the store, skimming the sale prices and surveying the freshness of the products. Shopping with our personal assistant is easy, as they are linked to all appliances and devices in our home. They know what staples we need and will place the order for us to pick up. This is a quick example of how technology, with the power of AI, will create the retail store right in our home. In this future, industry connection with our loyal consumers will be critical to our success. Big companies with big pockets are obsessing over every possible consumer. They are mining our digital fingerprints, connecting the dots of our personal story, and calculating our potential value. Many of us think of Google as the top search site, but did you know that Google has recently become the biggest travel agency, doing over $18 billion in sales? Last year, Expedia shocked the street with the announcement of dismal Q2 earnings. They blamed it on changes Google had implemented with its ads and algorithms that moved Expedia's search results down the list. Some argue this was for Google to take a greater share of the profitable travel agent industry. As the food industry, what can we learn from this? We must view the connection with our consumers as the battlefield of the future. We can either partner with these companies or create our own connections. But either way, we must understand our consumers' value to us, because others will shortly, if they haven't already. I will hand it over to JJ to discuss our next scenario.
Thank you, Austin. Our next extreme scenario is I want what I want when I want it. Consumers will be looking for a transactional experience along with the last mile being solved. Consumers are going to spend as little time purchasing their food and instead will use their time researching and planning their next meal. They will continue using technology platforms for their food inspiration, requiring food companies to have a strong digital presence. Products that are difficult to differentiate will be placed on subscription, and everything else will be demanded when it is wanted. So, how will we get to this scenario? The last mile will need to be solved. Let's look at one transportation development and extrapolate that to the impact it will have on the supply chain. We will begin with a short video.
Hey, there he is. Happy birthday.
That looks pretty futuristic, doesn't it? Autonomous vehicles, 3D printed food, or another technological advancement might solve the last mile. However, the most likely change to bring our industry to 100% delivered by 2030 will come in the form of drones. Google's drone subsidiary Wing utilized that video to begin marketing delivery in 2019 in Virginia. They have already completed over 100,000 flights in Australia. The drone pilots itself, can travel 12 miles round trip, produces 0 emissions, and travels 1 mile a minute. Currently, drones can carry about 3 cans of soda. However, carrying capacity will increase. Using Moore's law for illustrative purposes, if the carrying capacity can double every 18 months, that would mean in 3 years it will be 13 pounds, and by 2030 it will be over 200. Since the consumer will be utilizing drones for everything that is not on a subscription, like a last-minute purchase of birthday cupcakes, they will be willing to pay a premium for speedy delivery. So, how will the supply chain change to support this new network? Arriving at a 100% delivered scenario will be accomplished through the current store footprint. What do you think the yellow dots on the map to the right represent? It actually has nothing to do with drones. Each dot represents one Walmart store. Over 50% of the US population lives within 5 miles of a Walmart. This means Google and Walmart could partner together today and deliver product to over half of the US. If the range of the drones expands 8 miles, they could deliver to 90% of the US. Think of the rapid expansion that we saw from electric scooters a couple years ago. The research and development is expensive. However, the unit economics is likely inexpensive and something that could be implemented rapidly. If your future consumer will belong to this scenario, we encourage you to begin partnering with Google and other drone companies. I will now hand it over to Charles to discuss our last scenario.
Thank you, JJ. In the showroom scenario, winners will truly obsess over their consumers who are seeking an experience of personalization at its finest. The showroom consumer is looking to have the last mile solved, however, still be able to get out and enjoy the social setting. Drones may solve the future of the last mile. However, if not, autonomous vehicles will serve as another solution. Currently, Google and other companies have logged over 1 million driverless miles, and Google has already launched an autonomous driving taxi service in Phoenix, Arizona. If some of the hurdles that drones will have to overcome, such as government regulations or potential weight capacities, don't come to fruition, then autonomous vehicles will lead the way in the extreme case of the last mile being solved. After all, with an autonomous vehicle, the weight capacity is equivalent to an Instacart. Let's take a look at what the showroom is all about. I want to present you at Nike Soho. In this location, Nike Plus members have the ability to obtain a shopping experience that would inspire any world-class athlete to hop on a plane to New York. This venue is packed with field turf in case you want to feel how your football cleats wrap your feet when you're actually on the field. It has basketball courts to test the support of your new high tops before you make the purchase. Or perhaps you simply want to see how your new kicks reflect off the hardwood. Nevertheless, it's about the experience. It's about the investment in quality and creating unparalleled loyalty to your brand. Right now, you're probably asking how this pertains to the food industry. Well, imagine a grocery retailer that partners with local celebrity chefs. Consumers gather for a social experience in which they come in and pay to sample options ranging from locally grown produce to filet mignon, or dare I say, 3D printed food. Before we find out what icing is on the cake, consumers should determine their favorite wine pairings as they're taking in this entire experience. With hundreds of options to sample, this experience does not stop here. In fact, it's only begun. It's time to place your family's order for next week's dinner that will be delivered Monday through Friday. And by the way, the kids no longer have to settle for the same dinner as mom and dad. Food retailer and CPG companies can embrace these showroom concepts by providing experiences such as contracts with celebrity chefs that provide dinner exclusive or themed evenings in your venue, health or specialty lifestyle focus. Imagine the possibility for prescribing a menu as opposed to a form of medicine. Subscription replenishment. This will enable you to build the loyalty, track your retention rate, as well as truly get to know your consumer. If done right, you will obtain a high level of brand or chain loyalty, as well as generate globalized brand recognition for your company. If personalization and differentiation is your competitive advantage, you might want to consider the showroom approach. I'm going to hand it back to Kathleen so she can recap today's learnings, as well as ask for your commitment to the future of our industry.
So are you interested in competing for your future consumer in any of these scenarios? You might be thinking your consumer can just decide what scenario they are going to engage in without you. But over the last several weeks, we have seen how you and your companies have significantly stepped up and helped your consumers shop in the new scenario we find ourselves in today. You don't have to simply accept the future. You can help shape the future. Staying relevant to the consumer is the universal threat to every business in the food industry. To stay relevant in 2030, you will need to know where food trends are happening and how the consumer is shopping. From this process of scenario planning, we believe that all 4 scenarios will exist in some form or another in 2030. The future consumer will be interacting with the industry through social experiences and through transactional platforms. We are asking you to plan your strategy today for the next 10 years to shape the future. Stay relevant by knowing who will be your most profitable consumer in 2030 and in what scenario your business will have the best competitive advantage to reach those consumers. Gary Hawkins, in his book, Retail in the Age of I, reminds us, quote, The retail industry has available to it technologies and capabilities never before possible. Retailers can either continue to follow, unwilling to accept the yoke of future innovation, or they can jump into the game and create the future." End quote. We are urging you to jump into the game and create your future. Thank you for your time today. We are happy to answer any questions that you might have and would appreciate any comments that you have as well. Please reach out to us through the email on the slide to contact our team visionary.